Do you want to know how to create depth of field in an image? Well, in this tutorial, I'll show you just how to do it. Welcome back everybody to another fun tutorial. This tutorial was a request from a follower on how to add field of depth to your image. So in this tutorial, I'm going to show you just how to do that. You can go ahead and download the images in the description below to learn along. Unfortunately, one of the images is from Envato Elements, so to download that image you need to have a subscription with them, but you can use any image you want. Let's have a look at the images that we're going to use today. Let's jump in. So there's an image of the desert, which we're going to use for our background. There's an image of a motorcycle that we're going to use. And then there's an image of this woman and boy. Now this is the one from Envato Elements. If you can't download that, you can use any other images of some people. Go ahead and mask them out. I've pre-masked my image out because that's just boring to watch. If you want to know more about masking, I'll leave the description in the link below. I'll leave the link in the description below, or you can click on this link in the top corner. Let's get started. So I have my desert. I'm gonna copy, Control C, and paste on here, Control V. So now I have all my images from the bike, the boy, and the woman. So with field of depth, there's a few things that have got to be done. Saturation, contrast, maybe a bit of brightness, and blur, depending on the distance of the subject. So let's start. I'm going to start with placing my layers in their position, the bike, the lady, and the boy. So I'll start with the bike, which I want as the furthest image. Control T or Command T, and we can resize this. So I'm going to put that maybe a bit further in the background. About there. Let's go ahead and convert all these to smart objects as well. So right click, convert to smart object. Right click, convert to smart object. Right click, convert to smart object. Now I'm going to put the boy in the next spot. Oh, oops. Make sure they're turned on before converting them. Convert that into a smart object. Convert that into a smart object. So now Control or Command T will resize the boy and place him where I feel like he should be. Maybe we'll go there. And the woman, Control T. Something like that. Awesome. So let's start with the bike at the back. So we'll turn our first two layers off and we'll start with the bike. What we'll do is I'll show you a quick way to color grade or color match with the scene in the background. It's actually pretty good, but what we'll do is we will use a curves adjustment layer. We'll clip it to our motorbike. Then what we'll do is make sure the curves icon is selected and not the layer mask. So the icon, we're going to hold Alt, click Auto, and then just here find dark or light colors. And now all we do is click on the black and we'll click on the darkest spot in the image. Click OK, click on the light and click the lightest image or the brightest part of the image. Click OK, click OK. We'll click on No because we don't want to save them as our default. And then what we can also do at the same time is lower the contrast a little. Here we go, that looks pretty good. what we might also do is maybe saturate it a little bit. Use the vibrance saturation, clip it, and I might just drop the vibrance and the saturation down just a tad. That looks good. So again, we're talking about dropping all that, and then the further away it's going to start to get a bit blurry because we're focusing on the woman. So we're going to be focusing on the woman, then the next bit you want to see is the boy, and then the next bit you want to see is the motorbike out the back. So what we'll do is we'll go to our motorbike layer. I'll rename that bike, enter. We'll come up to filter, we'll go to blur, Gaussian blur, and then we will just have a look at this. The good thing about converting our image to a smart object is that we can always go back and readjust these filters that we apply. So I might go there, about 2.2. It's good. Click OK. We'll put all this into a group, so making sure the bike is selected, hold shift, click on the top layer, Control or Command G to put it into a group, and we'll rename that bike. Now I want to put 2 bikes in there, so I'm going to go Control or Command, press J, and now I've got a copy. I'm just going to move the lower copy, Control or Command T, move it to the side, and maybe make it a little bit smaller. Enter. Looks pretty cool, I think. Alright, now let's move on to the boy. So, first things first, we need to add a shadow. So the sun is behind him directly, so we're going to add a shadow coming towards us. My quick way is, I will hold Control, click New Layer. That will put a layer behind him. Hold Control or Command, click on the layer of the boy, which we'll select, and then making sure black is our color, Alt and Backspace. Control or Command D to deselect. Now we've created a black boy, and we'll use that as his shadow. So Control or Command T, we'll right click, go to flip vertical, oops, Control Z, make sure your shadow layer is selected, Control or Command T, right click, flip vertical, and we will bring it down to his feet. Click enter, and I'll go ahead and add a Gaussian blur to that as well. Filter, I just added the same one I added to the bikes because it was already there, and lower the opacity. That will do to start with, and we'll do the exact same with color matching with the curves adjustment layer as what we did with the bike. So select the boy layer, curves adjustment layer, clip it to the boy to only affect the boy, making sure the curves icon is selected, Alt and Auto, click on Auto, find dark and light colors. So we can do all of this step, or I'll show you a quicker way. I'll get rid of this. So now I don't have the curves adjustment layer. I can go to the bike layer, I can hold Alt, click on the curves and drag it above the boy, and then hold Alt and click in between the 2 layers, and that will clip it to the boy. And we can just adjust this bit here, which I think that looks good. And again, so he's not as far as the bikes, but he's not as close as the woman's going to be. So we're going to add a slight blur to him as well. So filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and we might bring that down to maybe just 1. think looks pretty good. And I might even desaturate him a little bit. So on the boy mask, on the boy layer, vibrance layer, it'll already be clipped to him, and we'll just drop the saturation just a touch, maybe the vibrance just a touch. Yep, looks good. And we'll put all the boy into a group now, so selecting the shadow, coming up to the curves adjustment layer, holding shift, click, control or command G, we'll put it into a group, and we'll rename that boy. So you can go and take your time a lot more with the shadow and the color grading, but we're mainly looking at depth of field in this tutorial. Now what we'll do, turn the woman on, we'll do the same thing. She's going to be a little bit more saturated due to being closer and in focus. So she looks pretty good. I'll probably do a little alt, click and drag at the curves layer above and clip that to the woman. Looking pretty good. And I think that looks pretty good already. Depending on your image, you may need to desaturate it, add a bit of brightness, but for now, this looks good to me. Holding shift, click on the woman, we'll put that into a group, control or command G, woman. So we've got all our layers. Like I said, the benefit of having our layers in a smart object means we can go back and alter them if we need to. Now let's start let's start putting in our depth of field. So we're going to put an element in between. Because they're in the desert, we'll just use a dust element from behind the bikes, in between the bikes and the boy, in between the boy and the woman, and maybe one in front. We'll see how it looks. So creating a new layer, I'm going to go to my brush. Now I have some brushes that I use, a fog brush which I use for dust. You can use your general brush, which we might do for this tutorial. General brush, super soft. Click on our brush settings and we'll go shape dynamics, jitter size all the way up, scattering just a little bit. Alright. Now let's go. I'm going to take a sample color from the background. So holding Alt, I'm going to left click on the sand somewhere, and now that just drag past behind the bikes. Looking good. I'll create a layer between the bikes and the boy. Might grab a slightly different color. And we'll go between the bikes and the boy. Again, a slightly different color next to the boy. And we'll go, oops, Control Z. Add a new layer between the boy and the woman. And then one more layer in front of the woman. A little bit bigger. There we go. So we've got our layers in between each. You can add multiple layers. If you've got different brushes, you can add different brushes to create a different pattern, which will also enhance the image. So for now I'm just using a general brush, but if you go download some brushes and play with them, you will get a better effect. And now what I'll do is I'll just play with the opacity between them. That. Drop the opacity of the one in front. Drop the opacity of the one behind the boy a little bit. the one in front of the boy a little bit. Cool. Might create another layer between the boy and the bike, and just use a 30% opacity brush. Add a little bit more dust behind him. Maybe create a new layer here and add a little bit more dust there. Awesome, it's looking good. It's pretty good. So what we'll do is, I don't actually like the size of this image, so I might crop this. I'll use my crop tool. I'll bring it up a little bit. I might bring this in a touch. Looking better. Hit enter. Now what we'll do is we'll convert all this into a single image. So clicking on the top layer, Shift, Control, Alt, E, we'll make it one layer. We'll convert this into a smart object, so right click, convert to smart object, and then we'll go up to filter, camera raw filter, just to finish it off a little bit. And I'll bring this up. So this is a personal preference for you. Actually, before we do this, we'll do one more thing to add a bit more field of depth. Let's click on our, hold Alt and click on our bottom layer, so our background layer. We'll turn that to a, convert that to a smart object too. Let's go filter, blur gallery, and tilt shift blur. So now we'll come up with this, and I'm going to bring this down to the front because this is the most in focus part that I've got for the image. Might open this up just a little bit more, and then we'll open that up just a little bit more. Maybe to there. Like that. Looks good. Click OK. Turn all our layers back on, except for the top one. We don't want that one anymore, so we'll delete that. Shift, Control, Alt, E, brings it all to one, merges it all to one layer. Right click, convert to smart object. We'll go to filter, camera raw filter, and then we'll just play with these little settings. Like I said, it's totally up to you. About there. Quick OK. And then there you have it. There is an easy way to create field of depth by saturation, contrast, brightness, and blur. I hope you guys liked this tutorial. If you did, or you have a request for something else, definitely like the video, drop it in the comments below. Always love to hear from you guys. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Most of my viewers aren't subscribed yet, so hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell to stay up to date. And until next week guys, see you later.